Why so many interracial relationships are surface. This is the unspoken why. Welcome back to the Unspoken Why. Shouts out to everybody who subscribed to the channel. I appreciate every single one of you. And thank you to everyone who watched my last video. I know it was not a banger. It was not very popular because, you guys got used to me talking about race and dissecting racism, which I absolutely love to do, which I will do more of, by the way, which I'm going to do today, hence this episode. But like I posted about in my community tab, on the channel, I am not just going to talk about race, as I have a plethora of things that I'm interested in, as I'm a multifaceted human being, as we all are. So check out the Mamdani video. Mamdani is dynamite. He is rooted in Africa. He is a whole different kind of Indian man. He is not a Cash Patel. He is not a tap dancing sellout. Okay, he is the truth. And when you see that video and when you see the dissection that I did on his family, you will understand why I did that video, why it's important that he is now the new mayor of New York, and why New Yorkers have more hope now, a possibility of like a somewhat decent future, and just knowing that they won't get dicked over like they usually do by the big wigs, by the billionaires, and the ruling elite. So yeah, check that video out, guys. I did that video for a reason, and it actually is related to race. So check it out if you haven't. And you don't have to agree with me, but I did the video because he is not the kind of Indian man that they were expecting him to be, which is why they are truly mad. Because if you're a sellout, if you're tap dancing, of course they love you, right? Like Cash Patel. But if you are rooted in truth, if you are standing on business like Mamdani is, like he held it down recently in that meeting with Trump at the White House, and you saw Trump looking like, wow, he didn't know this guy was going to be this amazing. So yeah, he's standing on business. So definitely check that video out if you haven't. But let's get into the topic today, why so many interracial relationships are surface. Number one, the lust factor. All right, so this goes all the way back to slavery, and really actually before slavery. Because remember, the Europeans traveled to Africa, and when they were able to finally get through the terrain of Africa, right, they discovered a people who were free. They were free with their bodies. They did not have the same requirements and customs that Europeans had with clothing. And because they were not a lustful people, right? Because if they were a lustful people, they couldn't be half naked living their life every day, right? That's just the truth. So they discovered a people who were more free with their bodies, but they were not lustful with that. But they were lustful, right? The Europeans were lustful, hence all the graping that happened to black women. So then the graping started as they enslaved the Africans, right? It started on the African continent in the slave dungeons, then it continued on the slave ships, and then it continued on the plantations in America. So the exploitation of the black body started as soon as they discovered Africans and then began to enslave Africans. Okay, so they were lusting the African people based on their body types and based on it being something that they never had before. Okay, and fast forward today, it still happens with the porn industry, right? There's this fetish, and they always have like, oh, a black man with a white woman, a black woman with a white man, and they calling it jungle love. And we even had a song called Jungle Love. Remember that song, My Jungle Love? Oh, okay. I did like that song, I'm going to be honest, guys. But this whole desire to have black lovers, to experience a black person, even in the South back in the day, there was this saying amongst white men, there was this belief actually, you were not a real man until you had sex with a black woman. Now, keep in mind, that was sex, not legitimate sex, just any kind of sex. So this is why a lot of black women got raped back in the day during the South, especially when they were walking home alone. The South was never really industrialized for many, many years because all the plantations were in the South and all the factories were in the North. And black women would be walking home, late at night, and it's just a bunch of woods, and they would get, raped by groups of white men. And that's what they considered manhood, which is like, you have not had sex legally or illegally with a black woman, then you're not a real man. So I don't know if that narrative still stands amongst the beliefs of white Southern men, but that's how it was for a very long time. And then even, slave masters' wives were sneaking into slave quarters, and this is well documented, and sexually taking advantage sexually of slave men. I mean, they could not say no. I mean, can you imagine? You're a slave. Well, regardless, though, you're a man. Of course, you can, deny her, but that meant death. That meant her lying on you, saying that you raped her and you didn't. Right? She wanted it. She wanted to experience that because her husband was experiencing that. So let's all take advantage of black bodies, right? And even black children were being taken advantage of. This is all very well documented. So, stereotypes, exploitation, old narratives, this is all going into the lust factor of why certain people want to be with certain people, not genuinely because they want to be with them, but because they know that that's an experience that they want to have. Now, let me be clear, before I get into the rest of these points today, this video is not to say that every single interracial relationship is surface, because that's not true, right? There's always outliers. I'm not here to down interracial relationships like they're all bad, like there's never been a good one, right? Because that's not true. There are outliers. There's always outliers. But let's be honest. Many interracial relationships in America are surface. That is just the facts. And that's because America has never unpacked its history with slavery and the exploitation of black bodies and black people sexually. And you have to understand this, guys. We do not even talk about what happened during slavery and all the sexual exploitation of man, women, and child during slavery. We do not unpack our history and our abuse of black people and black bodies in this country. We don't unpack it. We never unpacked it. We try to act like it doesn't exist. And this is why a lot of these interracial relationships don't unpack it in their own relationships, don't talk about it. And this is why they tend to be surface. Right? Now, there are interracial relationships where they do talk about these things. They talk about race and racism and slavery and the dynamics of being with each other and what that meant in the past and what that still means now. But that's not a normal thing amongst many interracial couples because of the lust factor, because of America making it seem like it's something easy to get into, and America keeping it surface. Let's be honest. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, like I said, number one, the lust factor. Sometimes it's not love, it's curiosity, it's stereotypes, it's fetishing. It's just let me experience that black body. Or for some black people, it's let me experience that white girl. Let me experience that white man, right? I feel like it's more so for the men than the women because of the fact that a lot of black women never had a choice during slavery, and they were raped more, I think, than anybody else, And so that's why a lot of black women, even till this day, really don't give white men a chance as much as black men give white women a chance, because that deep rooted history of knowing, like, black women, we didn't have any access, or we didn't have any control over our bodies and who could do what to us in any way, by the way. It's like, hey, a lot of slave masters would say, hey, I want you to mate with John, right? And John is a man, another slave, like you, but you don't know him. Maybe you don't even have any relationship with him. You're not even dating him, because slaves have relationships, but sometimes they would just mate people. So black women, while enslaved, we did not have control over our bodies when it came to being sexually with a white man or a black man. Because sometimes they would just say, like I said, you got to mate with John because he's the big buck on the plantation. So you have to mate with him, and because I said so. And then I'm going to come and take it, later on tonight as well. So this is the reality. So this is why I say the lust factor more so tends to be with black men and white women, but it can happen with black women and white men, but it's not as frequent because of slavery and because of the lack of agency that black women had over their body from any man. Okay. All right. Now moving on to number two, the cultural factor, why so many interracial relationships are surface, it's a cultural thing. So there's different cultural backgrounds at play. And unless the black person and the white person grew up in the same neighborhood, had the same background, they're the same class system. So this includes white and blacks that are both poor, or white and blacks that are both middle class, white and blacks that are both upper middle class or rich, right? If they have the same value systems, then the relationship can be deeper because they have more in common, right? Even though they are black and white, they come from the same cultural background, same city. They both grew up with a mom and dad had money, or maybe they both grew up poor, with messed up parents. They can have a lot to relate to. But if they grew up totally different, how are they relating to each other? Right? It's very hard to do that, and they have to work deep at that. But usually the lust is the lust is so powerful, they're not going to work deep at that, right? They're going to just let their surface American, quote, identity kind of mix with each other, but the deep rooted cultural factor never gets tapped into. So again, this also goes into communication. A lot of black people communicate very differently from white people. Family expectations can also make the relationship feel a little surface. So maybe the black person wants the kid to grow up black and the white person wants the kid to grow up white. All kinds of things are at play culturally, and you really don't know how deep it is until you start having those conversations. But when those conversations never get had about, like, hey, is your family racist? Hey, is your family going to accept me? I'm white. Hey, is your family going to accept me? I'm black. If you never have those conversations, then the relationship stays surface and it never gets deep. And then problems arise when one partner calls the other partner the N-word, or another partner might say, hey, I never wanted to really be with you. Or, people get insulted, people's families attack each other. It can get really dirty because you have to really know what you're getting into. Does this person really accept me? Does their family really accept me? Are we on the same page about raising our child as with this identity or with both identities? And those are conversations that you have to have. But if you never have those conversations, problems arise, and i.e. the relationship is surface, and you end up breaking up. And a good example for this was Halle Berry. Okay, guys, remember in November 2005, she began dating the French Canadian model Gabriel Aubry. Remember that guy, the blonde guy that she was dating, and everybody was like, what is happening? Why is Halle Berry dating this guy? Well, remember, they had one kid together, one daughter. And it came out in the media that he basically had ended up calling her the N-word. They were arguing a lot, and he was trying to make her daughter white. Like, I remember her saying in the media, like, he was trying to make her daughter white and straighten her hair a lot. And I was really confused, to be honest, because Halle Berry is half white. Her mother is white. And so, but I feel like she's very black. Like, Halle Berry is a black woman. She's always been very much of a black woman. She's never really identified much as biracial, even though she is. She doesn't really identify that like that. She identifies like a black woman. But then she ended up having a child with a French Canadian model named Gabriel Aubry that looks nothing like any guy that she's ever dated. She really only dated black men before then, but had been abused, by the way. She's deaf in her left ear, allegedly from Wesley Snipes, who she used to date, and he abused her. He knocked her out in her left ear, and she's deaf in her left ear because of that. Look that up, guys. This is true. So she had been abused, but then she had that relationship with that other black dude. I don't know. But long story short, Halle Berry should have never been with this man. Right? If she wanted to be with a white man, that's her prerogative. But she started dating a guy that was younger than her, and they had nothing really in common. And then she actually gave this man a kid. He didn't even make as much money as her. He really wasn't on her level at all. And then he ended up insulting her, calling her out of her name. And of course they have differences because it was just a lust thing. They were never really having deep conversations. They weren't really in a real relationship. He wanted to tap Halle, and I guess she wanted to tap him, right? And then they ended up having a daughter, and now they have all these cultural issues because she believes her daughter is black, even though I think we'll all argue that her daughter is not necessarily black because her mother is half white and her father is a full French Canadian man. So basically she's majority whites. But she decided to give this man a child and then tell everybody that her child is black, which is a little strange in my opinion, guys. I mean, just seriously, because she had so many chances to have full black kids, right? But she did not. And then her other baby's father, he's also a white man. He's a French. So, yeah, I don't understand Holly Berry in that sense because she has always been rooted in blackness, but yet she gave two white men children. And both of them really were not on her level. I would say the French actor is a little bit better. He's darker hair man. Like he's a little bit better than the Gabriel dude. But still, that's one of my examples. It just made no sense. It was all lust. There was no real relationship there. And now she's with a black man. Now she's with a black man, an artistic Pisces, musician dude who totally looks like her type or like with the type of guy that she would be with and go with and deserves. And yeah, it's just weird. But these are situations that happen a lot in interracial relationships when it's all about lust, right? And the cultural aspect is not hitting because they're not talking. They're just doing it. They're not talking about anything deep, anything real. They're just doing it. That's it. Okay, moving on to number 3, the control factor. Power dynamics is what I like to call it. So let's start from the black side, okay? And I've got to be honest here. What I have observed with a lot of interracial couples is there's access to jobs and opportunities through that white counterpart. And I feel like that tends to be why a lot of black people want to date outside of their race, especially dating white people, because they can get access to jobs that they won't have access to or opportunities that they usually won't have access to. Let me explain how this works, right? If I'm a black man and I'm dating a white girl and her dad owns the car dealership, well, if I get her pregnant and I need a job, most likely I'm able to get a job because, at that dealership because her dad works there or he owns the dealership and he wants me to be able to take care of his daughter and his grandchild. This is how it works, right? And so you hook yourself up to somebody who has more privilege than you. You hook yourself up to somebody who has more opportunities than you. And now you can ride the coattails of their opportunities and their privilege just by simply being with them. And black women do this as well, but black men tend to definitely do this a lot. I also think that because we live in a society that puts the white woman on a pedestal, that has placed her as the woman, the primary woman, the top dog, that still having a white woman is like a symbol of success for some black men, not all black men, right? But it exists. And just look at the NFL and the NBA and all the sports and you can see it right there. So there's this whole notion of like power dynamics. It's like, I want to have access, right? And on the black female side, it can be that way as well. It's like, hey, I want a white man because he has more opportunity and access and he is the man. He is the American man, right? He gets all the control, whether he's rich, whether he's poor, he's still white. He has his white privilege and I can benefit from that. So all of these things are always at play, right? The power dynamics. Now, the control factor, let's talk about that on the flip side with the white partner. Now, there are some white people, that want to have control over the person that they're dating. And some white women, they feel like they cannot really be in control with a white man, right? But if they're with a black man, they're always in control because whiteness trumps blackness, even in a black male body form. Right. So for instance, she gets mad. She can always say, I'm calling the cops, or she can cuss you out, say I'm calling the cops, and the cops come and they're always going to take her side, right? The cops are always going to be on her side because she's white, right? And her whiteness trumps his black manhood. And that's how America works, right? So some white women, they might feel like, hey, I want to be with the black man because I want good loving and I want that masculinity factor that he possesses that maybe white men don't possess as much. Well, not maybe. A lot of white men do not possess the same amount of masculinity and that energy that black men have. That's just a fact. So they want that as well. But also it's the fact that, hey, even though he has all of that, I'm still white and my whiteness still trumps him. And I like that. I have that power over him, right? And maybe some of these white women might feel like, hey, I can also manipulate and play these games because he'll deal with me because I give him white privilege. And he remembers, like, if you want to be with me, if you want this access, if you want me to be on your arm, if you want me to go in there and get that loan for you from the bank, you better be nice, better play nice, And then on the white male side, it's a little different because America is set up for the white man. It's his country. He, colonized, raped, controlled, stole resources for this to be his country. So he doesn't really need to be with a non-white woman to have power or control or to feel like he has to flex. He can actually relax more. You know what I'm saying? Because he is the white person in the relationship, he can let her have more privilege if she's a black woman or Asian woman or whatever, because he doesn't need to be, he knows he's in control regardless because he's white. You know what I'm saying? And so he can let the black woman have more control. But maybe he's just over white women, right? Maybe he's had so many, because I've actually had conversations with some white men about this before. And, they've expressed that they're just like, hey, I'm just, white women are terrible. This is what they've said. Some white men that I've talked to is like, hey, I've had so many white women and I'm so tired of them and they're terrible, and they're always popping pills, and I don't know, that just they've complained. And so for some white men, I think it's just like, hey, I'm tired of dealing with white women and these expectations that they put on me as a white man. I don't want that. And so if they get with a black woman or a Hispanic woman or an Asian woman, the expectations are not the same simply because they're a white man, and that's already hitting a certain expectation for that woman of color, whether she be black, Hispanic, or Asian, because America is a white supremacist, racist society that already props his white manhood up as the top elite manhood in this country. So that's already something that he's already reached. He doesn't have to work at, he just is, because the system's rigged. So he doesn't have to work that hard, and he'll still do what he has to do and take care of business, but the pressure of having to always be better and one up, and oh, I just had another baby and you have to buy me a new house, because white women are very demanding. White women don't play. Like when they have more than 2 kids, they need a new house, they need a new car. They set a lot of expectations, high expectations on white men. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess, or a good thing. It just depends on how you look at it. But a lot of white men, they're tired of that. They don't want that anymore. And that's why they might date outside their race, right? It may not be a controlled thing. It may just be like, hey, I'm tired of dealing with this woman. And for the black woman, it could also be a potentially, hey, I want access. I don't want to deal with a black man, crying and moaning about his life and his problems. And I already have my own problems, which I don't necessarily agree with at all. But I'm just giving you reasons as to why a black woman might also go out and say, hey, or maybe she's been harmed or, abused by black men emotionally, physically, spiritually, just any kind of way. And she's like, hey, I'm out. We got to learn to work with each other, to be honest, because all we have is each other. But I'm just giving you reasons as to why, how the control factor and power dynamics are in play, and why when the relationship is like this, it's not authentic and it's surface, right? And why those relationships tend to break up, those interracial relationships, because it's not real, right? If you're just in it for a power play, it's not going to last. All right, moving on to number 4, self-hatred. Now, this is, of course, for blacks, for us primarily. So I've got to be honest, guys. Some of us, we're out here dating because we don't feel connected to other black people, or we don't think that we're good enough, that a black woman or a black man is good enough for us, or maybe, we want our kids to look a certain way. This can go both ways with black men and black women. Or you're trying to escape family expectations, right? And for white people, it might be they're trying to escape family expectations or racism that they grew up with. That can definitely be for whites. Like maybe they grew up in a racist white family and they can't stand these people, and they're just like, hey, I just want to go far away and date far away from these people. And just defy their odds, right? So that's on the white side. Maybe it's like, hey, I want to make daddy mad, or I want to make my mom mad. I can't stand my mother. I can't stand my father. I don't want to be with the white man or white woman because they were terrible parents. That happens as well. But for the black side, really, the self-hatred is real, us wanting to not be black anymore. Because that's basically what happens, when you decided, hey, I'm only going to date and be with a white person because I don't want to continue this black legacy, this black DNA, this black genetics. You're basically, and it's only for that reason. That's self-hatred. That's totally self-hatred. Or people that say, I only date outside my race, I don't date black people. Or black man says, I don't date black women at all. Black woman says, I don't date black men at all. That's self-hatred. And that's definitely a reason why a lot of these interracial couples are surface, because when you're only dating somebody because you hate yourself, that relationship's not real. And it's never going to work down the line. It's never going to work. When you don't see value in your own people and you don't see value in yourself, and so you're just like escaping through dating outside of your race, there's never going to be any emotional connection with that person of the other race, and it's never going to be genuine. All right. And last but not least, guys, media influence. And this is huge. And I've talked about this in some of my other videos. These interracial couples in the media are not real. And if you noticed, they're always rich. And like I talked about this before in some of my other videos, they're always rich. They've always got a lot of money. They've always got a big house. And I don't know if they're like signaling to black people, like, hey, you want that white privilege and access, you got to be with a white person. And look, when you get with a white person, and all the Lifetime movies and all the, commercials, you got a big house, you got a nice car. Everything is flashy and new and everybody looks great. They're all skinny. They're all perfect looking. But in reality, you walk into the Walmart and you see like the craziest interracial couples. Like they look crazy. And then you're like, whoa, that couple looks really different from that Lifetime movie I watched yesterday. So, let's be honest. The media loves showing these perfect interracial couples in huge houses. Again, perfect lighting, brand new cars. But in real life, folks, things are messy. And a lot of these couples do not look like this. And just because you're in an interracial relationship doesn't mean you have, more money. Doesn't mean you're better off. It doesn't mean any of this. You're just in an interracial relationship, right? And there are working class ones, there's middle class ones, there's upper class rich ones. But the media is really trying to get people to mix as much as possible. And my personal opinion on that is that's because they want, black people to dissolve and become white. And they feel like they're our answer, basically. I feel like they feel like our answer to getting rid of racism is just to become white, because they don't want to, as a dominant society and as a government, they don't want to just not be racist anymore. They don't want to just do right by us and let us be ourselves and together. They'd rather just say, hey, just get with, mix with the whites, the undesirable whites, of course, because let's be honest, white people that are operating within a certain income bracket, from a certain class background and status, a lot of the times they don't interracially date, so really they're telling the working class blacks to get with the working class whites, and they have babies, and then their babies marry white, and then that's your ticket to freedom, black folks. They're really just denying black relationships altogether. When they keep showing these interracial relationships, they're denying the reality of the 80% of black men that are married to black women. And that's a fact, because that's their agenda, is to separate us, to have us not be together, because that's their ideal version of us having real equality. That's how I see it. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, though, guys. I'm at the end of the video here, and I'll run through them all together again one more time. So why so many interracial relationships are surfaced? Number 1, the lust factor. Number 2, the cultural factor. Number 3, control factor, aka power dynamics. Number 4, self-hatred for blacks primarily, but also for white people escaping, the dominant society and the racism that they've suffered in their families. And then lastly, number 5, the media influence. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, and if you agree with what I spoke about today. If you're in an interracial relationship, are you rethinking it, or are you in one of those outlier interracial relationships where it's working, where you guys have these deep conversations, where you talk about race and racism, where you are close with their families, your families are close to each other? Or are you in a terrible interracial relationship where it's totally surface and you realize this now, or you realized it before and you got out because you were like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? This was not authentic. I wasn't being myself. I was being fake. Right? I was being fake. I was never discussing racism just to be with this person, because this happens a lot. And usually this happens to the black people. Back in the 1970s, interracial relationships were more authentic because the whites that got with the blacks moved into the black community. They basically were black acting, their energy, their vibe. It was very much a black vibe. They were not the white person that got with a black person that was still being, acting like they were in white society. The whites that got with blacks in the 1970s totally came into the black world. They left the white world, right? And they lived with black people, lived in the black community. The white woman had all black friends, black female friends. But that's not necessarily how a lot of the new 2025 interracial relationships are. A lot of them now, the blacks are like in the Get Out movie. It's like they are not really being their true selves. They can't really talk about race and racism. And you ask yourself, like, why are you in a relationship like this? If it's not power, power dynamics and you wanting access and control to opportunities and things like that, why? I mean, that's the only reason I could see. Because if you're going to deny yourself this much, live this much in a denial state, and be this inhibited in a relationship, be this restricted, I mean, to me, it's not worth it at all. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. I've talked enough. Thank you for listening, guys. And remember to ask why.